we wanted to push that quality even further. We wanted to make as much of a fleshed out configurator as possible. So Keith and I, again, like I said earlier, we kind of took this passion project on our own here and created a really high end configurator. And so we have a little video that we're going to show you. And I just wanted to kind of talk about the progression of the CELESTIQ since I've been there. And unfortunately, Keith was not there for those first two projects, but he came in swinging for this last one. And honestly, this is what they use globally. This configurator, Cadillac actually hired a concierge team to use this configurator and sell to high-end clients. And so they're going in every single day using this configurator. It's a global tool that all of GM's different partners across the world are able to utilize and then design somebody's one-of-one CELESTIQ. So I'll go ahead and play this video. We built this for Cadillac marketing so that they could use it to kind of demonstrate to people around the world and high-end clients. There is a
Jacob, there's
little bit of audio.
I was gonna say, oh, we can hear it. Okay, we're cool. Never mind. We're good.
Okay. So I'm just gonna, as this is playing, is it okay if I talk over it a little
Absolutely.
bit? Or
Yep, should be good.
okay. So what you're seeing right here is the, our ultra bespoke Cadillac CELESTIQ configurator built in Unreal Engine 5. This is probably the closest. This is probably the most fleshed out configurator in what you can actually do inside of a vehicle that I've ever seen. We've worked with a number of people at Epic Games, and they see kind of the work that we put together here, and they're telling us, even the people from Porsche, from Bentley, from Pagani, the people that are putting together those configurators, they really are getting a lot of hand-holding from Epic themselves, but we actually are doing this kind of on our own, so we get a lot of kudos and support from Epic itself. But what you're kind of seeing here is our configurator, and you have the option to change through so many different configuration options. You can see right now we're going through the different paint colors. All the icons on the bottom right of the screen are going to be your configuration options. That is a scroll bar, so there is a number of options going between the different wheels, whether you want to have 22-inch, 23-inch, bright, dark wheels, just kind of depends. And this is all a real-time interactive experience. You just saw how I was able to change my camera to go into the interior, and now I'm going to change my different color options. So this is kind of what I was talking about, the different palette options. You can basically go in and pick whatever color you want to be able to design your vehicle. What Cadillac actually did, which was really cool, is they designed this vehicle in what they call the 7 zones. So zone 1 is going to be like the upper headliner. You saw me change zone 5, which is going to be the seats itself. Zone 2 here, you're able to change the upper IP and steering wheel. And there's all these contrast, these contrast options that you can do. So even if you don't want to have your whole zone to be one color, you can pick these artful locations to have these contrasting options. So you can see how I made the steering wheel that cinnamon orange color. And when you think about your vehicle, you think when you go to a dealership, you go and buy just whatever trim they have, just whatever option that they have available for you. But the goal of this configurator is to give the power to the consumer and to give the design to the consumer to really design whatever they want. There's so many different options here. Right now, where you're picking your debossment on your headrest. Do you want to have a really luxury, interior options? Do you want to have carpet or leather on the floor? Do you want to have a plush floor mat or not? And here's another great feature that we built out as well. You can actually, in this vehicle, click on any leather piece and hand select and design exactly what you want. So you can see here, as I'm clicking on this, I'm changing the bolster colors. I'm basically, making a unique seat design for what I want to have as the designer. And this is all built in Unreal. It's all real time. We get a very good 50 frames per second with cinematic rendering. You have basically a free cam to be able to move in different locations that you want. And we have all these touch points or hot spots that you can go to for camera angles to basically holistically view the vehicle. Um, Another really great feature that we added in this is because this is, for ultra wealthy individuals. Uh, if you're wealthy enough, you can do anything. If you want to have that fabric from your grandmother's couch, you can get that somehow in this vehicle. So we actually built out a really cool way to design this system where you can add in any texture file at runtime and be able to UV scale it, offset it, rotate it, do a little bit of a color shift on it to kind of get like a design. And so you're basically able to do this live with a client. And if they just like, I want to have some kind of checker pattern on my seat back, you can go and find that texture and just load it in. And this is all in a packaged project. And what is also really fun is this is again all real time, so you didn't actually see me press the button, but this is a real time animation that you can play during the configuration process. So after you're done designing your vehicle, you can hit play and you can see all of the design that is actually available that you just created. Um, and yeah, just we put together this montage. Our team did the animations on these tray tables right here as well. Super luxury. I think it's like a $25,000 upgrade to get those tray tables, just something ridiculous like that. But yeah, I mean, this is basically the passion project that Keith and I over the last, I think, 2 years, Keith, two and a half
Yeah,
years or so.
it's about right.
Oh, my screen
Almost
just.
three, almost three. Yeah, thanks for showing that off, Jake. If you want, I can talk a little bit too here and give you a break.
Yeah.
Um, if that video interests any of you and like you're asking yourselves like, well, what can I do to like work on a project like this in the automotive industry? Like, how do I get into the automotive industry? I would say like there is kind of two main paths for you to like get in like this business to like do really cool projects like this. And kind of the secret is that like all the jobs at like GM and the other like OEMs are like very very specialized. Like there is no school that is teaching people specifically how to become like a windshield visibility specialist. Like you either have people that come in as an internship where they train you from the ground up to be able to do something like this where you're making specifically a visualizer for luxury cars, or you have people that are coming from sister industries that are close enough. So for me, I came from the game industry to GM. I was able to bring that tech art and that 3D experience onto this team into a visualizer because GM is able to just like buy people that already know what they're doing, buy people that already know what they're doing, or train them from the ground up. Like they are just looking for people specifically. Like when they look at portfolios, they are going to look for people that can follow brand guidelines, and then they're going to make the vehicle look the way that they want it to. Like maybe it's cool to make the vehicle go off a ramp, but that's not what they want for a luxury car. They want it to look classy and luxury and feel like rich and like
Oh yeah.
something that is like high quality, something that is like inspirational. So the mood boards are extremely important. Like me and Jake have to work with mood boards from these brands every single day. Different brands all have their own mood boards. And that's like super important. Like that influences all of our um, decisions that we're making for even like the background of this project, like what time of day it is in the sky, the color in the back walls, the gradients, the
The
lighting
position of the
direction.
sun.
Yes. Like these are things that the brands will clock you on immediately when you show them. Like when we bring some of this imagery to review, they say like, I don't like that the shadow is um, like 45 degrees off. We don't usually do that with our brand. And then specifically, like some brands, they're like, we like um, shadows of people that are off camera spilling over into the image so that it doesn't seem like you're in a ghost town. Like they have very very specific asks for their brands, and that is like something that is important to portray, to show that you can show up and like make a car look good, for the business, because we're not making video games here, but we're selling cars. So like you need to do what's going to like make people excited for the vehicle. And I will also just like kind of it's unrelated to this, but also kind of share a little bit of my background too at my previous role, because before GM, I worked for a couple of years at Stardock as just a 3D artist. And while I was in that role, I actually did get the opportunity to spend some time helping them like sift through candidates to hire. So like I was involved a little bit in the recruitment process for like portfolio reviews, and I actually got to see like firsthand like what do employers look for when they're trying to hire people that are like looking for a job in the game industry, and now the automotive industry too. And I will say that the biggest thing, for like you know in contrast to like GM, who's maybe more willing to train people, is if you want to go into like a local business or like a smaller business, they are going to be strapped for like time and resources where they are not going to want to like train everyone. They want someone that can jump in and start making assets like 2 weeks later. At least that's what I experienced when we were looking at portfolios. So when we would look at like your pieces on your portfolio, we have to ask the question: is that an asset that they're demonstrating that we can drop in our game and press play? Because they are paying for someone that's going to contribute. They don't want to buy a trainee. And I understand that like every place you go to, like you're gonna have a learning curve for sure. Um, but in my personal experience, like right out of graduating from Ferris, when I went into Stardock and I started making assets, I will tell you that my art director had been working for Ubisoft for 20 years making like Assassin's Creed, and her assets did not match the same quality as my assets when we put them next to each other in the game. Like I'm a fresh college graduate trying to match the quality of a 20-year industry veteran. You got to learn very, very fast. Like, and if you can demonstrate that on your portfolio, that you can show up and immediately contribute to the product, the vehicle you're selling, the game, whatever it is, the role that you're trying to get into, they are looking for someone that can kind of match, kind of drop their stuff in, and it's not so. You got to have good UVs, good textures. Like if there's like glaring issues, they're going to say that's a problem for our game because like we don't want all these bad issues like in our topology. That's why it's got to be so clean, and it has to be a complete asset. Like if you're just showing great, just gray boxes, gray assets, they might ask like, oh, he doesn't know how to texture, that kind of thing. And there's some nuance if you're like applying for different things, but I guess that is kind of like the lesson that I've learned from seeing like how do you actually like kind of get in one of these roles is and that's also why it's important if you do have a dream job in mind, like if you want to work for the auto industry, then your portfolio should not be all characters because we need to know that you're going to be comfortable working with vehicles on the day one you start. So that's why you should tailor it, because you're demonstrating to them that you are selling them a service of like you being able to make stuff that's going to benefit their business case. So that is kind of what employers look for, is that like you're going to fit in, and that you have you got to make sure that all your assets are like super clean. I think that is like kind of that's kind of most of my 2 cents that I wanted to like make sure that I always tell people this when they reach out. um and like honestly, like me and Jake and like and Kyle and everyone else that has like gone through the industry, we've been there. I am super open to like doing portfolio reviews when anyone ever reaches out to me on LinkedIn, because like everyone always starts somewhere, and it's like these lessons that like it I did not immediately get up to that like 20-year Ubisoft level quality assets instantly. There is a little bit of a leniency there, but that's kind of one of the lessons, right? Is like you are going to have to learn how to adapt and grow in a really rapid environment. With automotive, like me and Jake get random assets like every day, like curveballs curveballs are definitely a thing, and you gotta just be, like it's a professional quality to say like, uh, I've never done this before, but I can figure it out. Like, I
Yeah. I actually have something to kind of build off of what Keith is saying. I think, one of the reasons that Keith and I think, are even here today is because we are not only alumni from Ferris, and, I would like to think that we have good relationships still with the faculty there. But more than that, when you think of what is available to you in Michigan in terms of job opportunity, of course, there's going to be, um, you know, a couple of outliers for what is possible in this state. But I definitely think there's kind of two main themes of, at least from my perspective, of what I have seen, and that kind of goes into either automotive or product rendering, like furniture or like something like that. Um, and from my time at Ferris, everybody wants to go into games, right? Everybody, that's what they're passionate about. That's what they like. That's why they're there. Um, and that's no different than how I felt going there. I wanted to go into games right away and be able to get that opportunity, and be able to tell stories like I played my entire childhood. Um, but there is volatility in that industry, and of course I wanted to be able to have the opportunity to stay near my family and friends, of course, as well. Luckily, General Motors came calling right at the 11th hour. A little bit about me: I probably applied to over 150 places before I was able to get a job. um, and since being at General Motors, it's been just an absolute whirlwind and a ride, to be honest with you, to see where I came from to where I am now. It's been really exciting. I guess like what I'm trying to say is, uh, you might have kind of that ideal position in your mind, that ideal industry that you would like to find yourself. But what we are seeing more and more of in not only this state, but just kind of in the industry space itself, is that you might not even think of certain places are looking for like a 3D artist or like a 3D engineer of some kind to help work with the data that they have, help show very quick demonstrations of something. A lot of people, when they're doing their bids to get work as a freelance company or like whatever, third party group, whatever it might be, you know before they do the actual work, they need to be able to visualize that work. And so you're learning the skills today of how to do like video game level stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all still kind of that 3D industry information, and you can easily be able to take that knowledge and pivot into an opportunity in the state, or even if it's just outside this state, wherever it might be. There's so much opportunity in adjacent markets and adjacent industries that, like, you know video games might not be the perfect path for you, but there's so many different opportunities that you can find. And I think, again, just to build on something that Keith was saying is, we get curveballs a lot, and we get really tight deadlines a lot. I'll come in on a Monday and I have two new requests for something that needs to be done by Friday. And so it's a lot of really quick turnaround stuff. And from my experience, what they want at General Motors is exactly like what Keith had said: is they want somebody who is able to take on a challenge. They acknowledge when you might not know how to do something, but as long as you are able to show that you can do your own research, your own independent study into something, be able to do a couple of mock-ups and a couple of testing and say, this is what I was able to do with the short time frame that you've given me, but given enough time, I think I could flesh this out to be a little bit cleaner. um, they really appreciate that mentality. So I think, if you take anything from this conversation, um, you know, believe in your skill set a little bit more, but also be open to learn, on the fly, and be able to, act fast, act, agilely, and be able to do what's asked of you, I guess.
I can add on to that too. Like, one thing that you mentioned is like the pivots. Like I said, I pivoted from programming to art to tech art because I realized that tech art is like someone that can do both. And like, if you feel like you identify with being a generalist, that could be a good way, and at least it was for me, to say, I'm a generalist. This is how I'm going to sell myself. Because you're by trying to join a business that is, they're selling a product, they're paying you to produce things for them. So you actually are selling yourself to the business, and you have to kind of prove your value through like what you can contribute to their pipeline. And tech art is kind of how I found was the best way to sell myself. Now, another thing I'd like to add too is like something that is probably like be in your heads over and over is like the importance of networking. And like, in my case, like Jake reached out to me to let me know that this like opportunity was available when I applied 2 years ago. Me and Jake, buddies since Ferris. I think that it's like, like me and Jake literally became friends at Ferris, and that kind of led to me getting a job later. Like, there's 20 people in this call, and there's plenty of people at Ferris like going and attending right now. This is like your time to make friends that are like very likely to end up in the industry. Like, you should be trying to make friends and make connections, make good friends, good connections. Don't, there's nothing more annoying than going to GDC and trying to beg people for jobs. Like, they always say, like, you have to go to the after parties at GDC, because like the goal is to make friends basically. And like one good example that I ran into is last year I went over to a friend's house for like a Halloween party, and while I was there, I met someone that makes rockets for they make rockets to they or not rockets, satellites, and they launch these satellites up on SpaceX rockets. And they said, oh, 3D art, can you make a bunch of logos for our satellites? So I made all these logos, and they ingrained them in the satellites, and now they're in orbit. And that's just like someone that I met at a Halloween party. Like, you it is really important to know that like networking is not just like like cold calling people on LinkedIn, but you are actually trying to make friends right now with people that are gonna go out into the world, get these roles, and hopefully you can have a good connection with them when they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't echo that more. Connections are everything.
Are you trying to tell us your work is in space, Keith?
I do have some work in space.
He didn't
Yes,
tell
I
me
do.
that either. He didn't tell. I'm finding
Wow.
this information out right now. So it's like,
Hidden
what?
secrets? That's insane.
But I think we could probably ramble on for another 45 minutes, but I think if we want to open it up to any questions, and if there's maybe
Yes.
not too many, we can maybe impart a little bit more wisdom.
Yeah.
Um,
Mel's in the house. Do we have any questions from folks that are in person in Big Rapids right now?
If we do have questions, just raise a hand. I think if you're online listening, go ahead and use chat. That way we're not dragging people into the thing all the time. Can you hear me okay, Kyle?
Yep, here just fine.
we can hear you
Okay.
great too.
Excellent. So, questions
Yeah.
on the horn. Ask away.
Yep, we have someone typing right now, so we'll just give it a second.
Excellent.
So I guess maybe going back to the configurator a little bit. I guess maybe you went pretty in depth on what that looks like, but I guess
Good question.
what in total, like, what skill sets are you incorporating in here? I mean, how much of your DAGD stuff is in there, and then how much of that did you have to kind of pick up on your own, kind of as you're
Yeah.
building up your portfolio and whatnot?
Well, two things. I'm gonna answer a question in chat real quick. How long did it take for you guys to get a job after graduation? Like I said, I graduated in May of 2020, and then I got my job at GM in April. Well, I started in April 2021, but I got the job in February. So it took me about 10 months of applying 150 applications and was able to get something.
For me, I had already had like a couple internships before I graduated, and I got my Stardock role 3 months before I graduated, with the contract saying that like they'd start me off at part time to let me finish until I finished, and then it would go to full time.
But to go back to your question, Kyle, I would say that, you know, At Ferris, I think there were a couple of classes where you really had the opportunity to use Unreal. But I wouldn't say at kind of this capacity. We did definitely create a couple of environments and a couple of like little video games inside the level design class.
It's absolutely changed since you graduated, actually, too.
Yeah,
We
no,
we have a
and
lot more
that's
Unreal now. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. But so I would say 95% of my experience was or 90%, 95% of my day is basically in Unreal these days. When I first started, I was doing a decent amount of modeling in 3ds Max. So obviously that is the cornerstone of my skill set that I built at Ferris. Being I wanted to be a hard surface modeler and artist. Um, and so obviously having that background was super important, and being able to know things in terms of like the 3D industry, because a little secret here, we Keith and I actually work with a guy who does 3D modeling on our team. He did not go to school for this. He was just likable in his interview, and he's one of the best people I know, I should say. But he did not have a job or a background or a degree in 3D. He just had like I think a business degree of some kind, and he was just a very personable person during the interview. And they trained him entirely on how to do 3D modeling in like the job. Which I always thought was very interesting because Kyle, to kind of further answer your question, you know, I come in with all this 3D knowledge, and they want me to be an Unreal Engine artist, and so obviously that is uh, a more game focused career path. But the 3D modelers that we have on our team aren't necessarily what we in the what as like a DAGD student are not what we would consider a 3D modeler. They're basically doing nothing but retopo work over CAD data, and that's what they consider 3D modelers. There is to basically do retopo, like almost strictly retopo. Um, and
Once he
so
finishes up, we'll get
I
you.
think the bar at General Motors is actually kind of low in terms of what kind of 3D work that you know how to do, because um, at least from my experience of what I've seen, I come in with all this game experience, or like a gaming background, and really all they're looking for is a 3D generalist. But learning those lighting techniques, learning how to create materials, learning scale, reference gathering, proportions, all those things were things that I learned at DAGD. But what I will say, that first project for the Celestic that we saw versus, the final product of what we showed you in the video, that's a night and day difference. And of course, it's different engines and different, lighting calculations and stuff like that. That really helps us out. But like, you know, I think Kyle, I had that one class for you where I modeled that Corvette, and I think that that was a really fun project and it turned out really well. But I didn't necessarily learn how to light a car in the way that General Motors wants to learn. I've probably lit the Cadillac Celestic 15 different times trying to get the right look, to understand like what Keith was talking about, the brand guidelines, to make sure that things look really nice. In these configurators, they're looking for 360-degree perfect lighting. They want Photoshop in a real-time experience. If you got a bad Kyle, you know this from your time at Dart Frog, you just Photoshop something out, right? Just tweak it in
Sure.
Photoshop.
Yeah,
You
fix
don't
in
have that
post.
opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That
you
used to
don't
be
have
my
that
motto, man.
opportunity. Um, Keith, did you want to add anything, and then I'll read a couple of the questions in the chat and we can answer those.
I've got a question
Yeah.
here real time too in the room. So if you want to get to the ones in chat real quick, then we can do a student in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keith, still add whatever you want to add.
I just to add to the comment about like one of our coworkers that didn't really start in the industry in the modeling space at all. The thing with GM is like, at our tech center there's about 23,000 people, and in GM overall I think there's like 109,000 people. And every time a job posting goes up, which is probably like every day, it's always going to be a different person looking at it. Like, and that job posting will only usually last 3 days, and then maybe a week later another one goes up. Like, it's just like this it's just a numbers game. It is like an RNG game. Like, you're always going to have someone different they're going to be looking
Yep.
for different skills. And like the best advice that I can give for that is like, it's just RNG. You're rolling a d20, but because like compared to him, you guys are going to school for it. And if you have a good portfolio, well, then maybe you can bring that D20 down to a D9. And then if you roll it 100 times and you apply, really put yourself out there and sell yourself and put in the effort to really like, apply to as many places as you can, that's how you can land that first roll. And then once you land that first roll, that is your expertise that brings it down from a D9 to a D5, because now you can say, I'm proven. Like I have the
Yeah.
stamp of like actually having this experience.
Yeah. Just to quickly answer Victoria, I don't have any crazy stories. I literally only had like 3 job offers, and they were all like emails, so nothing fancy. Jack, so basically, we don't actually model the vehicles ourselves. That is CAD data that we get from the engineering team, and then we have a data prep specialist team that it basically comes in as NURBS and wire files, curve data, and they will take all of that information from engineering, straight CAD data. We're talking about every bolt, every screw, every wire
Hundreds of
in the
billions of
vehicle.
polys.
They'll take it, they will strip out all of the unnecessary elements of the vehicle, and then they will give us like a really clean, lower poly vehicle. Sometimes these vehicles in CAD will be upwards of like 300 million polygons, and then we get it down to about 10 million polygons when we bring it into the engine, into
Yeah,
the
there you
Unreal
go, 10
Engine.
million
And
into the
also,
engine. Right, right.
we that interior of the engine of the vehicle, that is something that again comes from engineering, and we actually strip that out of the vehicle, because unless it's required uh for like the project we're working on, it's just unneeded data and we'll never see it.
That we have I think like 5 people on our team that their job, like their day job, is specifically going in and like gutting these super heavy models and making them simple.
Yeah.
Like they, maybe they do a little bit of extra modeling, but most of their job is getting rid of all these, like, because it's made, this model is made to go to a factory, so there's nuts and bolts and wires and screws, and like you don't need any of that for like a VR experience. We just need like just like the vehicle. We don't need the engine and all the gears and stuff. So
Yeah.
that is their day job, is getting rid of all that stuff, which we call
Yeah.
the B side.
Yeah.
um
We're basically taking a, a different person's deliverable and using it for what we want to use it for. Like we're using all of this information that is already going to a manufacturer, and we're using it to help create marketing related elements. And I don't want to leave the person in person hanging. So Mel, what kind of question we got?
You're up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I
yep, we
can.
can hear you.
Okay, so you guys do like hard surface modeling for cars and GM and stuff. And my question was, why was that something you wanted to like, how did you decide that hard surface modeling was what you wanted to do with your careers? Like, did you have anything else in mind when you first started on the DHD program, or did you like have that set goal from the beginning?
Keith, I can go first if you want me
Okay.
to, or
Yeah, that's fine.
so because I was kind of the one that made the comment about wanting to be a hard surface modeler. So when I wanted to be like when I first started DAGD, um, all I really knew is I wanted to be in video games. I didn't really think about the modeling aspect. Really, what inspires me about video games is storytelling and being able to be, tell a story through the campaign. And ever since I can remember, like playing video games, I wanted to be that person that kind of created that story. I've always been a creative person. But once I got into DAGD, it kind of like reality hit me a little bit as like, okay, so what kind of role would I actually be doing? And so I kind of, DAGD kind of just teaches you how to be a modeler, right? Like they teach you like those art fundamentals. And I was kind of in my head, kind of more of like, thinking I would be like a story writer or something like that for the games. But when you actually go into DGD and you're starting to learn modeling, I'm like, oh wow, this is a whole different world I didn't even think about. And one of the things that I always really had a lot of passion with is modeling like swords, weapons. There's a number of guns on my art station. The M1 Garand that I modeled, some sci-fi weapons, stuff like that. And I always had an incredible amount of fun modeling, these hard surface elements and that's just where that passion kind of came from. Is I just really enjoyed it, doing personal projects on my own. And even though I wanted to be a hard surface modeler, kind of like I think the beginning of your question is like, how do you kind of end up where you are right now, even though you wanted to do this? I'm just going to be straight honest with you. My goal was to get a job and to get paid and to, try to lead a successful life. Whether or not that made it into the game industry is like kind of here or there. My goal was to have a career. Um, and that is what I would really kind of challenge all of you to think about is, can you get a career in the industry? It might not be the game industry, but push yourself to get that job in the industry and use the skills that you're learning today is what, is my mentality.
Yeah, I'll give my answer, but I'll also kind of combine it with Blake's question because my answer is going to be kind of the same for both. Because Blake is asking about seeing the substance designer in our art stations and like how that like impacts our work and like why we chose that too. And I'd say that my answer for like, why did I choose this and the substance designer is kind of the same, that like that was my strength, is that something substance designer was something that I actually really enjoyed doing because I thought that it was just so cool to be able to like make these like elaborate textures and patterns using just like shape manipulation. Like you're almost like programming like a texture or a shape. And then I saw like the work of like Xavier Perez, where he's making like the axe that's actually just like a flat image, but he uses the displacement maps to make it a 3D object. I thought that was so cool and just like such a flex that you're like so good at like texturing that you can model with your texturing skills. That like I just kind of like leaned into that strength. And when I got a job originally at Stardock, it was just doing a bunch of grunt work, like random, like pots and barrels and different things that are like laying around the scene. But then eventually, I started kind of helping them out with Substance Designer, and they realized that like I actually kind of know my way around Substance Designer to the point where I started making all the environment textures, like the grasses and the brick textures and that kind of thing. And they kind of helped me lean into my strength within that role too. That has also happened at GM too, where they kind of realize that like I know blueprints. So now like when they have a project and like maybe they have Jake working on like a new CELESTIQ build and a configurator, maybe I can come in and help with some of the blueprinting side of it. So it's you kind of play to your strengths. If you if you like drawing um like superheroes, or you like drawing like anime characters, like maybe character art and sculpting is going to be your strength that you could lean into and be passionate about. Because what you want to think about is when you have a job opening that's open and you have 100 people applying to it and you only have three spots open, that means you have to be in the top 3%. And how are you going to be in the top 3% if it's not something you're passionate about? Because there might be someone that is passionate about it in that pool of 100 people. So by leaning into your strengths, that's how you're going to achieve that level where you are going to be at like the top of the pool, um, and kind of be willing to go to that mastery level because it's something that you're actually going like full force into. And I think like at Ferris does a very good job of giving you a taste of all the different fields: character art, hard surface modeling, texturing, that kind of thing. But like to really like get in like a huge industry job, you need to say, oh, I really really liked that texturing class. You know what? Like I want to like kind of keep focusing on that and get myself up to like a mastery level at it. And that is kind of where you become like an expert in that category, where now you are super super valuable to recruiters that see, oh, this person is really worth looking into.
Other questions in person? Yeah.
Looks like we have one more person typing, so I'll give them just a second
I've
to.
got a person live here that has a question too.
Hey, perfect. Yeah, go
Oh, yeah.
ahead.
Hi there. My name's Shane, and I had the opportunity to experience MDev Midwest GDC, and I got to experience my first after party, and it was rather interesting. And very seemingly, all the producers and modelers and other industry people I met, they were all looking to hire. However, as I also met other students, it seemed like a mindset was something that people should come into these events with. And I was kind of curious hearing from people that are already in industry, what is a mindset that you guys would take into an after party rather than, or is it as simple as just going to the after party solely just to actively look to get that job or career job?
I think for me, like when you go to a place like that, like networking is really about the people. You know, like you don't want to go in there and beg people for jobs and like put your portfolio in their face. You want to get to know them and say like, you know, like in like you want to like kind of like learn about them and kind of like make friends with them first. And then when they say, yeah, you know, like our business is currently working on this, it's really tough right now because like, oh my gosh, we're just like short on programmers, man. So like we just got to keep picking up all this slack in like our code because it sucks. And it's just been like so annoying. And that's when you say, oh, actually, you know what? Like I'm actually like really good at that programming language. Like, do you think that your team like might actually be willing to grow like if I was to apply? It's kind of like those natural like you have to kind of you, you have to kind of go in there with like the mentality that you're just meeting people and like kind of like trying to socialize and make connections. And you know, if you kind of learn about it and then you even, you know, if you can make friends with them and say, yeah, I'm looking for a job, I'm a 3D artist. Maybe they might know someone else you can go to that is actually actively looking. So like even if they can't help you find a spot, maybe you can get a good enough connection with them that they're going to be willing to help you out. So like it really is about the people, right? Because like the game industry is actually like a really tight knit like field. You know, there it's very intertwined. People jump like from all these different businesses. You know, like I said, like my art director at Stardock locally in Michigan worked for Ubisoft making Assassin's Creed. Like, so she has connections there. And so it is really about like trying to like start knowing people and like building your network.
Yeah. And I think just a very small thing to add on to that too is something that you have to, consider, these people that, you don't know, going into these after parties, you know, you're probably one of like 100 people that are doing the exact same thing. And it's like you have to also kind of consider that like some of these people might not be in a position to like offer you that job or to like, kind of communicate it upwards to, their leadership to be like, hey, I met this guy at this party and like I think he should, would be a good fit. I think that like kind of just a one thing to add on to what Keith said, it's you want to go in with the mentality that like first and foremost, these are people too, right? Like these are genuine human beings and like, you know, your goal shouldn't just be to try to get something out of them, right? You should go and try to make a genuine interaction and connection with these people and, just hope that in the future something kind of comes along because uh, you really just kind of want to like go in and have a good time with this person, try to be their friend, and so that they actually will consider you kind of in the future. If you kind of go into that, meeting with the hope that they're just going to give something to you just in this one 20-minute interaction that you're going to have, I don't think your chances are going to be super high.
Mhm.
To kind of add into
To
that, I was at a friend's birthday party last weekend, and I'm talking to his sister and then her husband, and we're just shooting shit, having a good time, doing whatever we're doing. And he mentions a side project he's doing, which is this like weird 6 degree of freedom seat that they have strapped to this racing simulator. I'm like, really? Wow, I do flight sims. That's cool. So we go off on this like half-hour tangent. We have to like leave the room because we're putting everyone else to sleep. I get his business card. He gets me the card of the guy that's the lead engineer for their thing. And I'm like, yeah, I'll see if I can get some students involved, maybe put you some other people, whatever have you. Did not go in looking to do a network hookup and try and find a job on a side gig. So it's like they talked about with that person that was with them at GM that just was a nice personable dude who happened to be able to do this other stuff too. So you might go in with the intention of using it as a networking opportunity for work specifically, but that can't be top of mind. Just be a cool person that people want to
Exactly.
talk to. And then it comes up that, oh, by the way, I know shit too. Hey, look at that.
Yeah.
So if
Find
they
something you're
sense it,
passionate about.
yeah, if they sense it, more often than not, they'll just shut you down. So
Yeah. Just like Mel literally just said, you want to get on those 30-minute tangents of some random topic
yeah,
and just collab and just chit chat back and forth.
that's how
That's
memories
gonna
get
make
made.
an impression, you
Yeah.
know. When I went to GDC just this past year in March, you know, I was at the Adobe after party,
Oh
and
God.
I already got a job. Like I don't need I don't, I'm just there to hang out, just to mingle, just to talk to people.
You're getting free
I met a
dessert steak,
couple of
you can admit
people
it.
at Bethesda that are working on, their next game and stuff like that. And it's just kind of fun little interaction that we're, talking about what they do, what we do. Um, and another alumni from Ferris, his name's Aaron. He actually works at Bethesda. It was just funny. These are his direct coworkers that I just met in a
Now
random,
talk smack about it.
place, in an after party, and we just got on the topic of him, and we were just chit chatting, and then because I made that small little connection with them, I ended up hanging out with them, one or two other nights in San Francisco that week, just because they wanted to hang out. They just wanted to invite me, and we didn't even really talk about work. We're just having a good time. And when we did talk about work, we're just talking about like the passion that we have for it, or the direction, that we want to go in.
Yeah, I would say like this kind of goes to like you need to know your audience, right? Like if you're trying to talk to people that are in the industry, to try and find an opportunity, like you gotta think about, like why would they give you that opportunity? Oh, because they like you and they think that they would love to have you as a coworker. So they want a good coworker. They want a good
Yeah,
teammate. If you're talking to a recruiter or like an art director that is looking for to fill a role, or like a producer that's trying to make a game, they're trying to make money. So like for to them, you're trying to sell yourself as a producer of like really good high quality stuff. But at
yeah.
these like social events, you're trying to say, I'm a capable individual. I would be a really good fit for your team. Um, Also, I see if you don't have anything to add to that, Jake, there's
I'm good.
another question in the chat. Pachani asks, is it better to be good at many things like programming and modeling or to focus on your strengths? I would say it kind of depends on where you want to end up because for like small businesses, like small game indie studios, they are going to be kind of strapped for resources. And maybe it would be beneficial for them to hire generalists that can kind of that are it is tough because you do have to prove that you're going to be proficient in all those categories that you're claiming. So do know that you do gotta be at a professional level in all those. But they would see a generalist as they're basically hiring three people. Because like maybe they're lacking in all these different areas and they already have a small team. And if you know three different skills, oh, we just got a texturing artist and a programmer. That's great. So like for smaller roles, it can be beneficial to have multiple a bigger tool set. But if your ultimate goal is to work at, Disney or Bethesda or like Activision, they are not strapped for resources. They don't need to hire three people. They want the best of the best in specifically just texturing because that's all you're going to do there. So if your goal is to work on these like really big, dream projects, then that is when you should really lean into your strength so that you can show that you're like the top of the field in that category. So it kind of just depends on the space you want to end up in.
And I think that is like a perfect, like that's a perfect answer. I feel like you couldn't be truer in that element. I feel like one small thing to add to that as well is that, like, in that instance too, right? It's like it's all about your portfolio. Do you have a broad portfolio of different areas that you have done projects in, or do you have a hyper specialized thing? It always just kind of comes down to generating your portfolio based on the role you're going for. So it's like if you're going for that, super Mac Daddy position, and they're looking for a lighting artist or a character artist, well, your portfolio should reflect that if you have that, and if you don't, then you need to start working on a personal project to fill out that portfolio. But when you kind of are going for one of those smaller studios that Keith is talking about, or even at General Motors, General Motors, they honestly, I've looked at a lot of the people that we've hired portfolios. You would be surprised how little or non-existent some of their portfolios are. So it really is just about, I think, being personable in a interview.
Yeah.
But all I'm trying to say is,
I can train you to
you can.
still, I
I've
can't
seen
make you eat
a
a dick.
pretty generalist set of portfolios for roles even that that I'm in, and these smaller studios, and you never know what one portfolio piece that you have that might spark interest. Like I think for me, um, when they wanted to hire me, I had modeled the Corvette ZR1, the 2019 Corvette in Kyle's class. Um, and that was literally the portfolio piece that they were like, well, he actually modeled the car. We just got done doing the Corvette visualizer. Let's hire this guy. He literally just modeled the car. Um, and in my portfolio, that was the only thing in automotive that I had. I had, a very broad, set substance designer, environments, photogrammetry, hard surface modeling, all this stuff. Um, so I mean, it just really depends on what you're shooting for.
I will also say, like, beyond like knowing your audience, you also have to know the environment that you're going into. Like if you're trying to, learn a software, you need to make sure that that software is still going to be there in 4 years, like when you leave. Like you need to make sure that you're kind of that when you graduate, like and you try and get a job in the industry, that you're going to be able to sell yourself on a tool that is now like up and coming, that might maybe have that maybe would take multiple years to learn, but you were aware of that multiple years ago, and that's when you started to learn it. So I think that, like, if I was to kind of start over and try and sell myself now, a lot of these small businesses are like these indie studios. They're probably going to start trying to lean into AI. That's kind of an issue for like people that are trying to get into art, because now you're competing with AI art, which is going to be that's going to be tough. So how you should probably approach that is you need to sell yourself as someone that's going to make art that has soul, and it's not going to have six fingers, and like it's going to be quality, and people are going to appreciate that it was actually like made thoughtfully and not just like a generic barrel, right? So like you need to kind of know the environment that you're going into and kind of prepare your portfolio to sell yourself no matter what the future holds.
Yeah, I think just to add something on to like the conversation of AI, um, two things. One, you know, as a 3D artist, like there's not really too many things that I can use AI for. Currently right now. I feel like, I'm not using it at GM to, help make any concepting or do anything like that. And obviously, like I can't use it to do any like 3D modeling generation or anything. But what I'm really using it for is to help kind of teach me and find the answers to some of those questions. So I think like one of the largest skills that I learned at Ferris is learning how to Google things, how to use keywords, how to use key phrases to find the topic I'm looking for. Typing in something super ultra specific on Google is not going to lead you to a good search engine of like topics that you're looking for. You got to be broad. But what I've really found with ChatGPT recently, especially within Unreal, because it's such a beast of a program, when I encounter an issue, I'm really using ChatGPT to help me problem solve and come up with ideas and solutions to mitigate or get around an issue that I'm having. And it's gotten a lot better in recent months. Is that the more specific I've actually gotten with ChatGPT on the issue that I'm having, the more clues that it's giving me to kind of navigate and solve something. And again, problem solving is probably your top five uh, skill that you're going to need to have outside of your technical abilities, like your soft skills. That those problem solving skills are going to be immensely important. um, and just to give a little bit of hope back into an industry fearing the rise of AI, when I actually attended an Autodesk talk at GDC this in in March. They were talking about their Project Bernini, I believe is what it was called, and that is basically they took a AI model, foundational model, and they trained it with 10,000 open source and available 3D assets, and basically think of things like vases, tables, chairs, things of that kind of nature. And they basically created, Autodesk, created an AI 3D modeling, generation, prompt, generate a vase or whatever it is. They actually took that to EA, and he actually shared with me, or shared with the talk, kind of the feedback that they got from one of the largest video game producers in the industry. And interesting enough, you might be surprised with what I'm about to say. The EA, directors were like, "So what?" Um, they not only did they not think that it was impressive enough, they already have 5,000 employees that can model a vase in 15 minutes and doesn't require any of the cleanup that is going to be required. They're getting some of the best people in the industry. And yeah, like AI is going to, make a difference in the industry, but everybody needs to look at it as a tool set, as something in your utility belt of what you can do and how to utilize it. And instead of being fearful about what AI is going to do to our industry, you need to understand, like Keith said, know your audience. You need to understand how AI is going to be used in the industry that you want, and understand how it's going to affect you, and try to use AI to your advantage. Um, and we're seeing that at General Motors right now, of how to use AI, with image generation, and that's a huge issue because everything's got to be product accurate, and if AI generates anything that is inconsistent, we're in trouble. So that's why, even though we're looking at it, we're not using it. And I think it's just one of those things where it's a new skill set on the battlefield, and you just have to, you know, utilize it to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to the thing that employers are really looking for, people that can show up, make something, and drop it into their pipeline very easily. And right now, AI is not there yet. You have to do so much cleanup on these AI uh, generated content that it's an advantage for you to be, as an artist, to say, I can give you a clean asset that is usable. It needs no cleanup. It is going to function, and like, you know, I'm a net positive contributor to your business.
Looks like Mel's
Seem-
typing now.
Yeah, I was typing, but I was to say, we need to wrap her up to get our next speaker in. Kyle, did you want to jump out of
Hey.
this stage into the other space?
Which other space?
Because you have the other event, right?
Oh yeah, that should yeah, I'll actually just go ahead and start that, and that should be in just the same spot here. So I'll
Okay.
just start that right now.
Well, just real quick, everybody, thank you for everybody who came in person, everybody that joined the call. We really appreciate it. Keith and I, thank you, Kyle and Mel, for inviting us. We always love to be able to support our Ferris alum.
Thank you, Keith and
And
Jacob.
thank you guys for listening to us ramble for an hour.
Thank you guys.
Absolutely, what Jake said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And real quick, I do have to end this for everybody now, and then we can start the other session here in just a moment. So I will be
Once
shutting
you
this
end
one
it,
down.
Kyle, and then I'll get Chris set up here, so we're good to go.
Perfect. So yeah, so this will shut down. So just make sure you join the other one here.